My name's Sarah, and I've got a story to tell you. I grew up in a military family, just me and my dad. Mom couldn't handle the stress of constant moves and took off after I was born. Dad, bless him, did his best, but he was always away on duty. So, I ended up living with my grandmother for most of my early years. When I was about 3, Dad remarried. A year later, my half-sister, Emily, came along. I didn't see much of them at first, still living with Grandma and all. But things changed when I turned 10. Dad retired from the military, got a fat pension, and bought a house. He came to get me, saying it was time for us to be a proper family. I was excited at first. A new house, a new family, it seemed like a dream come true. But reality hit hard and fast. My stepmom, Linda, was okay, I guess. She tried to make me feel welcome, but it was clear Emily was her priority. And Emily? Well, she was a nightmare from day one. "That's my room," she screamed when Dad showed me to my new bedroom. "I want it. Make her sleep in the attic." Dad tried to calm her down. "Emily, honey, there's plenty of space for both of you. Sarah needs a room too." But Emily wasn't having it. She threw herself on the floor, kicking and screaming. I stood there, suitcase in hand, feeling like an intruder in what was supposed to be my home. That was just the beginning. Emily made it her mission to make my life hell. She'd accidentally spilled juice on my homework, draw in my textbooks, and hide my things. I learned pretty quick that in this house, Emily could do no wrong. No matter what she did, it was always, "Sarah, be the bigger person," or "Sarah, you need to set a good example." So, I stopped complaining. I learned to hide my important stuff and ignore Emily's antics as best I could. But it wasn't just Emily making things tough. When I was 12, the doctor dropped a bombshell on us. I had problems with my thyroid, hyperfunction, he called it. He said I'd live a normal life, but having kids would probably be off the table. I remember sitting in that sterile office, the words washing over me like ice water. Dad squeezed my hand, trying to comfort me, but I felt numb. At 12, having kids wasn't exactly on my radar, but knowing it might never happen? That hit hard. Emily, being the brat she was, overheard and started calling me empty nut. It stung, but I tried not to let it show. I buried myself in my computer games, finding solace in virtual worlds where I could be anyone, do anything. Life trudged on, and before I knew it, I was 16. That's when everything changed again. Grandma passed away, leaving me her inheritance. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough to make Emily's eyes go wide with envy. "It's not fair," she whined at the dinner table. "Why does Sarah get all the money? We should use it for a family vacation." Dad backed me up, surprisingly. "Emily, that's Sarah's inheritance. She can decide what to do with it." I had plans for that money. All those hours spent gaming hadn't just been an escape, they'd given me an idea. I wanted to open a network of computer clubs for teenagers, maybe even a camp for training esports athletes. A place where kids like me could feel at home, surrounded by people who got it. When I shared my idea, Emily laughed so hard she nearly choked on her peas. "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Who'd want to go to a nerd camp?" "It's not dumb," I shot back. "Esports is growing. It could be big." High school graduation couldn't come fast enough. College was a breath of fresh air. For the first time, I could just be Sarah, not the girl with the annoying sister, or the one who couldn't have kids. I threw myself into my studies, focusing on business management. All the while, my dream of the esports camp simmered in the back of my mind. After graduation, I took a leap of faith. I packed my bags and headed to South Korea for an internship. If I was going to learn about esports, why not go to the Mecca? Those 3 years in Korea were intense. I worked my ass off, learning everything I could about running gaming centers and managing teams. I saw firsthand how esports could change lives, giving kids a sense of purpose and belonging. When I finally came back home, I was ready. I used Grandma's money to rent a small space and turned it into my first computer club. It wasn't much, just a dozen computers and some second-hand furniture, but it was mine. The first few months were tough. Some days, I'd sit there alone, wondering if I'd made a huge mistake. But slowly, word spread. Kids started trickling in after school, then flooding in on weekends. 5 years flew by in a blur of expansion, tournaments, and sleepless nights. Before I knew it, I had 5 thriving clubs and a full-fledged training camp for aspiring esports athletes. My team was racking up wins left and right. I was so focused on work that dating wasn't even on my radar. But life has a funny way of surprising you when you least expect it. It was at a gaming convention. I was there scouting new talent when I quite literally ran into him. Coffee went flying, splattering both our shirts. "Oh God, I'm so sorry," I stammered, frantically grabbing napkins. He just laughed, his green eyes crinkling at the corners. "No worries. I needed a wake-up call anyway. I'm Jake." "Sarah," I replied, feeling my cheeks heat up. We ended up talking for hours, long after our shirts had dried. Jake was a game developer, passionate about creating educational games for kids. He got my vision for the clubs in a way few others had. As we said goodbye, he hesitated. "Listen, Sarah, would you maybe want to grab coffee sometime? Preferably without wearing it?" Our coffee date turned into dinner, then weekend trips, and before I knew it, a year had flown by. He was different from anyone I'd ever met, supportive, kind, and he actually listened when I talked about my work. One night, over a homemade dinner, Jake got down on one knee. I was overjoyed, but a nagging voice in the back of my head wouldn't let me fully embrace the moment. "Jake, wait," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "There's something you need to know." I told him about my thyroid condition, about the likelihood that we'd never have children. I held my breath, waiting for his reaction. Jake just smiled and took my hands in his. "Sarah, I love you. Kids or no kids, I want to spend my life with you. We'll face whatever comes together." Tears welled up in my eyes as I nodded, too choked up to speak. He slipped the ring on my finger, and just like that, we were engaged. When we went to tell my family, I was a bundle of nerves. Dad was thrilled, of course. He clapped Jake on the back so hard I thought he might knock him over. "Welcome to the family, son," he boomed. Linda offered a tight smile and a quick hug. "And Emily?" She didn't even bother to come downstairs to meet Jake. I could hear her music blasting from her room, a clear message that she couldn't care less about my engagement. The wedding ceremony was perfect, simple, heartfelt, surrounded by our closest friends and colleagues. As we exchanged vows, I felt like my heart might burst with happiness. At the reception, I scanned the room, a small part of me still hoping to see Emily. Instead, a waiter approached with a large, beautifully wrapped box. "A delivery for the bride," he announced. The sender said to open it in front of everyone. My heart skipped a beat. Could this be Emily's way of making amends? Hopeful, I tore into the wrapping paper. But as I lifted the lid, my blood ran cold. Inside were baby clothes, tiny onesies, booties, and bibs. The room fell silent. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, could almost hear the whispers starting. Jake was at my side in an instant, his arm around my waist. "What's wrong?" he asked, concern etched on his face. I couldn't speak. Tears stung my eyes as the realization hit me, this wasn't an olive branch. It was a deliberate, cruel reminder of what I couldn't have. Jake took one look in the box and understood. His jaw clenched, but his voice was gentle when he spoke to our guests. "Looks like someone jumped the gun on baby gifts," he said with a forced laugh. "How about we get back to the dancing?" As I danced with Jake, laughed with our friends, a small part of me couldn't help but wonder, would I ever truly be free of my sister's shadow? The years after the wedding flew by in a whirlwind of work and ambition. I threw myself into expanding my business, driven by a mix of passion and, if I'm honest, the need to prove myself. Those computer clubs I dreamed of? they were thriving. But the real jewel in my crown was the esports training camp. I spent more and more time at the camp, coaching and mentoring. It was incredible to watch these kids grow, not just in their gaming skills, but in confidence and teamwork too. But while my professional life was soaring, my personal life was complicated. Every visit to my parents' house felt like walking into a minefield. Emily's hostility hadn't lessened over the years, if anything, it had intensified. She'd make snide comments about how I'd stolen Grandma's money, how I was getting rich off her inheritance. Must be nice, she'd sneer, living it up while the rest of us struggle. I tried to brush it off, but her words stung. Emily, I worked hard for everything I have, I'd say, trying to keep my voice level. Grandma's money just gave me a start. But she'd just roll her eyes and mutter something about how I always got everything handed to me. Dad and Linda would try to intervene, to smooth things over, but it was useless. The rift between us just kept growing. I started avoiding family gatherings when I could. It was easier to make excuses about work than to deal with Emily's constant jabs. Jake was my rock through it all, always ready with a hug and a reminder that I didn't need to prove anything to anyone. "You're amazing," he'd tell me, his eyes full of love. "Don't let anyone make you doubt that." But there was one doubt that kept creeping in, no matter how hard I tried to ignore it. Kids. We'd been trying for a while now, hoping against hope that the doctors had been wrong. Each month brought a new wave of disappointment. I remember sitting on the bathroom floor one night, staring at yet another negative pregnancy test. Jake found me there, silent tears streaming down my face. "Hey," he said softly, sliding down to sit beside me. "It's okay. We knew this might happen, remember?" I nodded, unable to speak. He pulled me into his arms, and I let myself break down. "I just wanted to prove them wrong," I sobbed. "To show that I could have it all, the career, the family." Jake stroked my hair gently. "Sarah, listen to me. You are not defined by whether or not you can have kids. You're changing lives every day with your work. You're building a legacy that goes beyond biology." His words helped, but the ache remained. We talked about other options, adoption, surrogacy, but for now, we decided to focus on our life together and my growing business. 10 years. It hardly seemed possible that a decade had passed since I opened my first computer club. As the anniversary approached, I decided it was time for a celebration, not just of my success, but of all the kids whose lives had been touched by our programs. I spared no expense for the party. The main hall of our flagship camp was transformed into a glittering wonderland of tech-themed decorations. Gaming stations were set up alongside a lavish buffet, blending the world of esports with classic party elements. The guests started arriving, current and former students, parents, industry colleagues, even a few local celebrities who'd taken an interest in our work. I plastered on my best hostess smile, greeting everyone warmly. Then I saw Emily. My heart dropped to my stomach. What was she doing here? I certainly hadn't invited her. She was arm in arm with a guy I didn't recognize, probably her latest boyfriend. To my surprise, she seemed subdued. No snide remarks, no eye rolling. Just a quiet congratulations as she passed by. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Maybe, just maybe, we could get through this evening without incident. The party was in full swing. Kids were showing their parents their favorite games, business contacts were being made over hors d'oeuvres, and the general buzz of excitement filled the air. I was just starting to relax when I saw Emily making her way to the stage. My blood ran cold. What was she doing? Before I could react, she had grabbed the microphone. "Excuse me, everyone. I have something to say." The room fell silent. All eyes turned to Emily. "I know we're here to celebrate my sister's success," she began, her voice sickly sweet. "But I think it's important that you all know the truth." I felt rooted to the spot, unable to move or speak. "Parents, do you really want your children spending time in a place run by someone who can't possibly understand their needs?" Emily's eyes found mine in the crowd, a cruel glint in them. My sister can't have children of her own. How can a childless woman truly know what's best for your kids? Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Emily wasn't done. I, on the other hand, am pregnant. She paused, letting that sink in. And I'm opening my own esports camp. One run by someone who actually understands children, who will experience the joys and challenges of parenthood firsthand. I stood there, shell-shocked, as Emily's words hung in the air. The room felt like it was closing in on me. Years of buried pain about my infertility came rushing back, threatening to overwhelm me. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Thank God for Jake. He was at my side in an instant, his arm around my waist, steadying me. "Let's get some air," he murmured, but I shook my head. I couldn't let them see me run away. Jake squeezed my hand and turned to address the crowd. "Well, folks, how about we lighten the mood? I hear the chefs have outdone themselves with the dessert spread. Why don't we all head over for a tasting?" As the murmuring crowd moved towards the buffet, I slipped away to a quiet corner. My hand shook as I pulled out my phone, seeing notification after notification popping up. Our live stream. I'd completely forgotten about it in the chaos. Comments were flooding in. Some were supportive. "What that woman did was disgusting. Sarah, you're an inspiration. Having kids doesn't make you a good mentor. Sarah's track record speaks for itself." But others were brutal. "How can she run a camp for kids when she can't even have her own? I wouldn't want my child around someone so unnatural." The rest of the evening passed in a blur. I pasted on a smile and made small talk when necessary, but inside, I was crumbling. Jake handled most of it, smoothly covering for me when I fell silent or lost track of conversations. Just when I thought the night couldn't get any worse, chaos erupted near the exit. There was a scream, then a thud. I rushed over to see what had happened. My heart stopped. Emily was sprawled at the bottom of the stairs, clutching her stomach, her face contorted in pain. Her boyfriend was kneeling beside her, panic written all over his face. "Someone call an ambulance," he shouted. As he helped Emily to her feet, her eyes locked onto mine. The hatred I saw there chilled me to the bone. "You," she shrieked, pointing a shaking finger at me. "You did this. You pushed me." I recoiled, shocked. "What? No, I didn't, I wasn't even near." But Emily wasn't listening. As her boyfriend started to lead her out, she kept screaming. "You're jealous of my baby. You couldn't stand that I can have what you can't." Her words cut deep, reopening wounds I thought had long since healed. I stood there, frozen, as they disappeared through the doors. The remaining guests were staring, some with suspicion, others with pity. I felt exposed, raw, like my deepest insecurities had been laid bare for all to see. The morning after the party, I was nursing a cup of coffee, trying to make sense of the previous night's chaos, when there was a knock at the door. Jake answered it, and I heard low, serious voices. My stomach dropped. "Sarah?" Jake called, his voice tight. "There's a police officer here to see you." I walked to the door on shaky legs. The officer, a stern-faced woman, introduced herself as Detective Martinez. "Mrs. Thompson, I'm here about the incident involving your sister last night," she said. "She's filed a complaint against you. She's lost the baby, and is accusing you of pushing her down the stairs." Jake stepped in, his lawyer instincts kicking in. "We have a full recording of the event. It was being live-streamed." We spent the next few hours going over everything with Detective Martinez. I provided the live-stream footage, the guest list, statements from staff and guests. By the end, I was exhausted but hopeful. Surely, with all this evidence, they'd see I was innocent. A few days later, Detective Martinez called. "Mrs. Thompson, we've concluded our investigation," she said. "You've been cleared of all suspicion." Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. "We've identified the actual perpetrator," she continued. "It was your sister's boyfriend, Mark Stevens. We have clear video evidence of him pushing her. I felt sick. But, why? He confessed during questioning, Detective Martinez explained. Apparently, he didn't want to marry your sister or have a child with her. He claimed she was forcing him into marriage by threatening to create a scandal. Your sister has been informed of the findings. I thanked her and hung up, feeling numb. It was over. I was cleared. But why didn't I feel relieved? The answer came in the form of a vitriolic voicemail from Emily later that day. "This is all your fault," her voice screeched through the speaker. "If you hadn't upset me so much at that stupid party, Mark wouldn't have felt pressured to do this. You're the reason I lost my baby." I listened, dumbfounded, as she ranted on, spinning increasingly illogical reasons why I was to blame. According to Emily, I had somehow manipulated Mark into pushing her. I had created such a stressful environment that it drove him to it. On and on she went, each accusation more outlandish than the last. The fallout from Emily's accusations didn't stop with her voicemail. A few days later, I got a call from Dad. His voice was heavy, tired. "Sarah, honey," he said, "I don't know how to tell you this, but Linda's taken Emily's side in all this." I closed my eyes, feeling a fresh wave of pain wash over me. "What do you mean, Dad?" He sighed deeply. She says you're not welcome in the house anymore. That you've caused enough trouble." The words hit me like a physical blow. I'd never been close to Linda, but to be outright banned from my childhood home? It hurt more than I expected. "I'm so sorry, sweet pea," Dad continued, his voice cracking. "I want you to know, I don't agree with any of this. I know you're innocent. I've tried talking to them, but..." "It's okay, Dad," I said, even though it wasn't. "You don't have to choose sides." But apparently, he already had. Over the next few weeks, I heard from him regularly. He and Linda were fighting constantly. She couldn't understand why he wouldn't condemn me, why he insisted on maintaining a relationship with his troublemaker daughter. It all came to a head about a month after the party incident. Dad called, sounding more resolved than I'd heard him in years. "I'm divorcing Linda," he said without preamble. "I can't do this anymore, Sarah. I won't choose between my daughters, and I won't live with someone who asks me to." I felt a mix of guilt and relief. "Dad, you don't have to do this. I don't want to break up your marriage." "You're not," he assured me. "This has been coming for a long time." Emily's accusations were just the last straw. After we hung up, I sat for a long time, thinking about everything that had happened. The constant drama, the accusations, the family strife, it all seemed so pointless, so destructive. And for what? I made a decision then. I called Dad back. "Dad," I said, my voice steady, "I've been thinking. I don't want to have any contact with Emily anymore. Or Linda. I can't keep doing this." There was a long pause. Then, "I understand, honey. I really do. You have to take care of yourself." His support gave me the courage to take the next step. The following day, I contacted a lawyer and filed for a restraining order against Emily. It felt extreme, but after everything that had happened, I knew it was necessary. To my relief, the judge granted the order. Emily couldn't come near me, my home, or my businesses. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. Afterwards, as Jake and I sat on our porch watching the sunset, I felt a sense of peace settling over me. "I should have done this years ago," I said softly. "Set boundaries, I mean. Maybe things wouldn't have gotten so out of hand." Jake squeezed my hand. "You can't change the past. But you're taking control of your future, that's what matters." I nodded, leaning into him. "You know, I've been thinking, maybe it's time we revisited the idea of adoption. We have so much love to give, Jake. Why not share it with a child who needs it?" As we sat there, planning our future, I felt truly hopeful for the first time in ages. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, dealing with my fractured family, starting the adoption process, but I knew with Jake by my side, I could handle anything. Life had thrown me plenty of curveballs, but I was still standing. My business was thriving, I had a loving husband, and now, the possibility of a child to call our own. Emily and her drama no longer had the power to overshadow all the good in my life. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I made a silent promise to myself. No more letting others dictate my worth. No more shrinking to make others comfortable. From now on, I would stand tall, proud of who I am and what I've accomplished. After all, family isn't just about blood. It's about love, support, and understanding. And looking at Jake, thinking about our future child, I knew I had all the family I needed right here.